Hi, my name is Michael and I'm the Shop Geek. On today's episode we're going to install a new bathroom faucet. We've picked up one of these from a nice convenient big box store and we'll be installing it into this sink, and we're going to show you the behind the scenes view so you can see all the connections that go together when you're putting this into your own house. So the only thing you're going to need for the first step is a tube of silicone, and we've just picked up a small one from the plumbing aisle. It doesn't really matter which type, just make sure that it is marked bathroom and kitchen. They put an anti-mildew compound into the caulking that'll make it last longer in a wet environment. Okay, before you install the faucet, assuming you're taking off an old faucet, you want to clean up the sink as best you can. So get a putty knife and scrape up all the old plumber's putty or old caulking, and then use a cleaner like Windex or whatever surface cleaner you use, and tidy up the holes for the faucet as best that you can. This will let the new silicone set really well. So I'm going to use the base of the faucet. I'm going to put silicone around the bottom of that and fill in all the gaps, and then we're going to apply that. We're going to insert the faucet and we're going to lightly clamp it down with these retaining rings. Now these retaining rings will be permanent, but I'm just going to let the silicone cure for now using this as a positioner. So let's spread our silicone. So I'm going to run my bead all the way around the base of the faucet. And most faucets today will come with one of these retaining rings, plastic bases. I'm going to run it between the two. And before you press it down, make sure that it's facing in the right direction for your faucet. Some of these don't matter. This particular one does matter, so I'm going to make sure that I put it the right way. I'm going to center it on the holes. Okay. Now we're going to take the faucet and carefully lower that into position. That will press down on the silicone, and I'm going to apply the retaining rings. Now obviously if your sink is already mounted to the wall, this will be a little more awkward. And I'm only going to do these hand tight and just enough to hold this in place. And that's the other one. Let's see. Okay, and double check for center. Everything looks good. I'll tighten this down just a little more. And we're going to leave this for a couple of hours for the silicone to cure. Now if any silicone squishes out, you could tidy that up with your finger, just wet your finger with some water and that'll wipe up and then wash your hands. Or of course you can use a Kleenex or a damp cloth and tidy up around the edges so you get a nice clean finish. And we'll come back and we'll finish this installation shortly. Alright, the caulking is set on the base for the faucet, so we're going to set this in place. And then we're going to apply the two clips and make them nice and tight, very snug by hand. We're then going to apply plumber's tape. This is also called Teflon tape. And I'm going to show you how this would normally go on, because we're going to get under there in a very cramped space in a moment. But you want to go clockwise facing the threads. So I'm going to go in this direction. That way when you tighten the nut down onto the threads, it tightens the Teflon tape instead of trying to peel it off as you go. Once this is on, we're going to attach a couple braided lines to the bottom, hand tight again, and then we tighten it with a wrench. And this end will attach to our new cutout valves that have been installed earlier as part of the replacement vanity system. So, okay, it's a kind of an awkward position, but I want to show you what we're doing here. So we've got the two bases for the faucet, and I'm going to apply the retaining clips like this. So I'm applying the retaining clips, and we're going to tighten those down, hand tight. We're going to go pretty tight because we don't want the faucet moving around while we're using it. Okay, that's good. Now, with our Teflon tape, again, we want to go clockwise. So I'm going to apply a few wraps of this directly to the threads, and this has two effects. One of which is to make it easier to tighten the nuts from our faucet lines onto these threads, and the other is to fill in any gaps and help make this watertight seal. So we do a few passes of this. You want to make sure that the tape stays open like this, so it's all the way around and you're not bunching it up anywhere. And then you just tear off an end and wrap it smooth. And we'll do the same thing to the other side. Alright, now we're going to take our braided lines, and I'm going to screw that on nice and snug, and I can feel the Teflon tape start to bite into the threads. Alright. There. Now, for those of you with a basin wrench, this part will be a lot easier. Since I haven't got one of those, I'm going to use an adjustable wrench on an angle. And I'm going to tighten this a quarter turn further. Actually, we're going to go a little more. But you don't want to over-tighten this. This is very, very important. Make it snug, and then test it with the water pressure. Make sure there are no leaks. And if there are no leaks, you're fine. If there's a small leak, there might be a few drops that come out. Then tighten it a quarter turn further. And you do that until it just stops leaking. If you tighten this too far, you'll crush the threads or you'll crush the washer inside, and then it will keep leaking forever. You'll have to get a new threaded valve line. So we'll do that for the other line as well. Over here. And then we'll connect to the cutoff valves. Now we're going to apply some Teflon tape to the cutoff valves, and you need to be careful that you don't block any of the flow, and again stick to the clockwise direction. So I'm going to make sure that we keep this nice and low around the valve, and I'm going to do 2 or 3 passes like that. And now, using this braided valve line, which I prefer to anything else, they're easy to use and they're very flexible. We'll put that hand tight, and then using our adjustable wrench, we'll put another half turn on that. Again, you don't want to over-tighten these valves either. Most new faucets will come with a new tailstock, which looks like this. It's the drain part of the sink, and you have to take the silver part off the top. Usually these will be installed with plumber's putty around the top edge. You can also put these in with silicone, which is actually what I'm going to use. Now that's the top surface, so the silicone goes around this bottom ring and will drop down into place like this. So put a little silicone on this. We'll put a good bead. And again, it's the kitchen and bathroom silicone we're using. And I'll drop this into place. Okay, so we've added the silver ring, and now I'm going to insert the tailstock with a hand to guide this and start screwing it up into the silver. And of course, it's important when you're finished that this piece be facing the back. So I'm going to give this a little twist, and we'll be in place to be able to tighten this up. Now that we've got the silver tight, we're tightening this up to make sure the rubber ring is sealed up against the bottom of the sink, and keeping in mind this opening needs to be pointing straight back towards the back of the faucet. Good. Alright, we've got the new tailstock installed. I'm going to slide the retaining ring up, and this little piece that comes with the drain pipe side. Alright, and we'll slide this whole assembly up and over until we get in position. Oh, I'm going to put my O-ring in, and now I can seal this piece back down where it belongs, and we'll seal this piece as well. And once these are tightened down, they'll lock into a watertight seal. There we go. Gives us a little bit of flex. So we'll tighten this down all the way. And then we'll tighten this one down. And then we'll tighten this one up. Between these 3 joints, you have a little bit of give when you're mounting the tail piece. Okay, we're going to put the stopper together. So we're going to take this piece now and make sure that the little flange end is towards the front of the sink. That gives you a little leverage. I'm going to drop that into the drain. Okay, and now we take the lever and slide that into the back cap, and that whole thing goes into the back opening. And if we've done this right, you'll want to check it up at the top. When you push down on the rod, the drain pops up, and when you pull up on the rod, the drain closes down. So I'll tighten this hand tight, and not too tight because you still want to be able to move the ball up and down, and we're going to check that for leaks after. You can always tighten up most of these joints after you've finished when you check for leaks. Okay, and I'll move up and down, and the stopper is moving up and down just like we want, which is perfect. Now I'll drop this rod in the back of the faucet. Okay, and that's going to get attached to this piece. So we want to screw that on at a reasonable height. Oops, excuse me. And this little metal flap is actually going to bracket that and make sure that it doesn't fall off. So let me see how high up that goes. Alright, we're going to put that about there. And some of this is trial and error. And after a little bit of fiddling, you'll get that clip around to retain the whole body assembly here. And I've tightened the nut up at the very top with a pair of vice grips just to make sure that we don't have any slippage. Now if you come up here, we'll test the operation. And it looks like our pop-up is working just fine. Alright, with all the pieces in place, we'll check for water leakage by turning on the water. So now we'll check for leakage by turning on our valves. Quarter turn there, and I'm dry here. And I'm just reaching this with my fingers, and that's dry, so hot water seems to be good. And now we'll turn on cold. And it's dry there, and it's dry there. So now we'll first close the drain and fill the sink with cold. Okay, and when you're finished, hit the drain again and double check. And it looks like our sink has been successfully installed. You'll want to check this a few times over the next couple of days after you install a new sink, just to make sure, after you install a new faucet, just to make sure that everything is working fine and there's no drips anywhere. And if you do find a drip or two, just tighten down that one spot and you should be fine. So, good.